Luke 10:25. And a lawyer stood up and put him to the test, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? And he said to him, What is written in the law? How does it read to you? And he answered, You shall love your Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And he said to him, You have answered correctly. Do this, and you will live. But wishing to justify himself, he said to Jesus, Who is my neighbor? Jesus replied and said, A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among robbers. And they stripped him and beat him and went away, leaving him half dead. And by chance a priest was going down that road, and he saw him. He passed by on the other side. Likewise also, a Levite also, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan who was on journey came up on him, and when he saw him, he felt compassion. And he came to him and bandaged up his wounds, pouring oil and wine on them, and he put them on his own beast, and brought him to an inn to take care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, and said, Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, when I return, I will repay you. Which of these three do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell into the robber's hands? And he said, The one who showed mercy toward him. Then Jesus said to him, Go and do the same. Oh, did that wrong. Sorry. We live in a time where the idea of community gets a lot of attention and gets a lot of talk. Politicians love to talk about community, but in reality, our sense of community is growing thinner and thinner. Our sense of community is absolutely less and less. And if you can think back just before COVID, what was our sense of community before COVID? And what is our sense of community today? Because COVID was one of Satan's best tactics in that it divided and conquered. It made us all stay 6 feet apart from one another. It separated family members from other family members. It suggested we could not be around anyone. And whether or not Satan caused COVID or not, I'll let you have your own opinion on that. The fact is, he certainly used that mindset to divide and conquer us and to weaken the sense of community. The sense of community in families where grandparents didn't see grandchildren for weeks or months, where people at work couldn't see each other, where people had to actually quit going places and close down their business, where even church families suffered and community suffered. This is a text about community that we're looking at here. Community either builds over time or it erodes a little bit at a time. And we are clearly in one of those phases where we are in the eroding phase. Our whole sense of community is being undermined by so many things, it's hard to even begin to articulate them. We don't even know how to disagree agreeably anymore. If somebody disagrees with you, they're the devil, they're the most evil thing to ever hit the planet, and they need to be eradicated, shut up, expelled, exiled, something or another. We got to get rid of them somehow. We don't know how to have that sense of community where different ideas are exchanged anymore. And it's become quite problematic. Now, the beautiful thing is we hold the choice. It's up to us how we go forward from here. You get to make the choice. You get to make it within your own little family unit, whereas you have the most authority, and I think you ought to start there in that unit. And then we all have a little bit broader social circle, and you work in that one. And then you can go a little bit beyond that. And you have to watch for the emotional distance, because that emotional distancing is the danger. Now, understand, some people are afraid to get close because I might get hurt. You may get hurt. Emotional closeness is vulnerability. But also, isolation is vulnerability. And so, as some people say, you just got to choose your heart here. Either way you go, it is going to be hard. You get to get involved with people, there are going to be times where you go, I don't know what this fool's thinking. And you get alone and isolated, there are going to be times I don't know what to do. I feel so alone. Well, who set that up? And so it's tough. It's dangerous. I don't think Jesus is accusing anybody in this text. I think Jesus is waking us up. And this is not a brand new problem. It is as old as mankind, and we always have to work it out in every generation. And it is our indifference that destroys community. Would you not agree? When you read about the priest that passed by and went on down the road, that's indifference. When you read in verse 32, the Levite that came by and passed on down the road, that's indifference. And indifference, whether we're just talking about a private family relationship or something broader, that destroys community. So the Samaritan came along and he simply did what he could in the moment. There was a moment, he came across a need, he saw a need, and he did what little he could do. Helen Keller once observed, and I like this, and I know I got my quote a little bit off, but she said, I can't do everything, but I won't refuse to do what I can do. And if you have an entire community of people who are actually doing what they can do, then you have something. Look, community is really no different than the old marriage example. We said marriage is a box. And if you have two people taking out of the box all the time, you got an empty box. It's a rough marriage. But if you have two people putting into the box all the time, you have a full marriage. Well, that also applies to the bigger family. And it applies to every family, community unit you can think of. And community units vary. They're not all exactly the same. You have your family unit, then you have your extended family unit. Now think of it this way, because all of you get this really quick. You have your family unit, that's the one you see just about every day, once a week. You're really involved with one another. Then you have the family community that shows up at Christmas and Thanksgiving and big special events, right? That's also a sense of community. You have your church community. You have your work community. You have your little daily run circle community where you actually may get to know the cashier and the person behind the counter fixing your Subway sandwich. It's all community. It's just different aspects of community. And wherever you're at in your daily running, you simply do the good you know to do in that moment. And sometimes it's just a smile and it's just some courtesy. And it's just a little friendliness. How are you today? Good to see you today. Oh, I'm glad you're at work today. I always like being in your checkout line. Or, just something like that validates another person. Or it can become a little more involved. It just depends on the situation that presents itself. So neighbor is not an address. This is not somebody in a specific location. And that is kind of what the lawyer was getting at. And Jesus put him into his place, I think, very gently put him into his place. Community just begins with people. Who are the people in your life? Who are the people you are actually having interaction with? Now, I really hesitate to put Facebook in that category, but there are people in China and Africa and every other country on the planet that you can interact with sorta on Facebook. And when you do that, you want to be good in that community. But really, I'm looking at the people you interact with in real time. They're there. They're in your space, so to speak. You can reach out and shake hands with one another. You can talk to one another. You can exchange pleasantries, or even more significantly. And then you don't worry about being identified, about getting credit. It's not about getting credit. We don't know who the wounded man was. We don't know who the Samaritan was. The only identification we have on the Samaritan was that he was a Samaritan. And some of us don't really get why Jesus used that. And the whole point is Jesus took what the Jews thought was the lowest level of society and made him the hero of his story. That's pretty important, but it's something that passes us, because to us, Samaritan almost becomes a name. It's not about being identified. It's about doing the good that's before you. It's about interacting with other people. And the priest is in action, weakened community, that broader sense community there. The Levite is in action, weakened it. Now, I can get the excuses. I understand what they could be saying. Man, I'm just so busy, though. I just don't have time to stop right now. I just got too much to do. I got to leave this poor guy here. Somebody come along and take care of him, won't they? And it's just we get too busy, which is one of Satan's favorite tools. Now, those of us who are older can remember the 60s where we weren't yet too busy. On the 70s where we weren't yet too busy, but it was starting to come along, wasn't it? And then it just kept speeding up and speeding up. How many of you can remember when no one would dare have a baseball game, a basketball game, a soccer game on Sunday? In fact, they wouldn't have it on Wednesday because They knew there was a place in the work community for the religious community. Now, they don't even care. Schedule it in wherever they can. Everybody's just too busy. Well, Sunday's the only day we can get them there. That's rough, isn't it? It's simply attention. This is what's going to build community. I didn't say receiving attention. I'm gonna have to do this little aside for the moment. I didn't say community is built by simply receiving attention. There's too many people sitting around going, serve me, serve me, serve me. I went to church over there, but they didn't give me what I wanted. I went to this place of business. They didn't treat me like I wanted to be treated. I was around this little social group of people, but they didn't treat me like I wanted to be treated. And the whole idea of community is not about sitting back going, please, please, throw me a bone, toss me a cookie here. It's about learning to give intention and invest in your community. And until we learn to invest in our community, actively invest in our community, at best we're sitting in the bleachers watching it. And the people sitting in the bleachers don't get the prize money. The people sitting in the bleachers don't get the applause. The people sitting in the bleachers don't get the trophies. The Samaritan chose presence. He came upon a need, and he serviced that need, and then he went about his business. Didn't seek the spotlight. Didn't say, hey, look at me. Let me post this on Facebook. Hey, guys, today I was going down the road, came across a bad guy, but I bandaged him up, and I took care of his fees for the end, and I did this, and I did that. Woo, y'all be sure and like me. Community building is just caring one-on-one, one at a time, in the simple little ways. You know, I've been trying to encourage you over the last few months, think small. Whatever you do in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord. Whatever you do it as though you're doing it for the Lord. Colossians 3:23. And sometimes it's just real simple acts of kindness. It can be, look, today we got it so much easier. It wasn't too many years ago this would have offended folks if we go back to the early 2000s. All it did was send me a text message. Nowadays we like text messages. How long does it take to send a text message? Now, whether you like text messages or not, you know, you're just going to have to decide that on your own. But the fact of the matter is that now is part of our community. And it is part of our community building. And it is a valid way of acknowledging other people and letting them know you think about them. So I'm not going to take that one off the shelf because, frankly, I think it's a great little tool to have. So it can be just by sending a text message. It can be something a little more involved, making a phone call. Or more involved still, showing up in person, doing a this or that, whether it's just a brief visit or something more involved. It's just one little act at a time. And again, let me say, it's the investing part, not the taking part, the me. It's the investing part of it. And we just work our own little corner of the world. Now that really simplifies it, doesn't it? How big is your corner of the world? Sit down and make a list today. Literally make a list. During your week, Monday through Friday, how many people do you really interact with? I mean, physically, you looked in their eyes, they looked in your eyes, you were in each other's space. It's not a whole lot, unless you have a particular kind of job that involves you with a whole lot of folks. But most folks probably could count them up, be less than 20 people. And now what community says is, okay, this is the community I'm focusing on right now. That's my list. How can I contribute something to it? A little kindness, a little courtesy. Hey, I'm going back to get me a cup of coffee in the break room. You want a cup of coffee? It can be that little. Or it can be, hey, I've got a flat. Can you come by and pick me up for work? You know, a little bit more involvement there. Not really that much. Nowadays we go, oh, I got to go all the way out of my way to go all the way over there and pick them up. That's going to take me an extra 15 minutes. I don't even know if I can do this or not. Back in the 60s, nobody had ever given that a second thought. They'd have picked up the phone and said, hello, yeah, I'll give you a ride, be there in 10 minutes, and it had done been done. We get too busy nowadays. So we're all going to have to invest some cost, time, energy, attention. This is what builds community. If you want a great marriage, number one, you better study how to have a great marriage. Great marriage does not work like Hollywood. Hollywood's fine entertainment. I'm not trying to take Hollywood entertainment away from you, but I will guarantee you, marriage does not work like what you see on the big screen. Hallelujah. It does not work by what you see in novels and what have you. If you want a good marriage, you get a book or two on marriage. And I would start with Gary Chapman's The Five Languages of Love and just figure out how can I speak, talk, do, or act in such a way that makes my mate feel like he or she is loved. Pretty simple stuff. Very simple stuff in Gary Chapman's book. Now, if you want to go a little deeper, this is an older book, but you can still go there to give you some insight. Some of you are not going to agree with, and that's the old Mars and Venus book. You can do that. Or you can go with the men are waffles and women are spaghetti. That's another one. Now, I'm getting off track, so let me get back to my lesson. So we're going to have to put in time and energy. It is our putting it in, not sitting around like I'm the customer waiting on it to be brought to me. So what the Samaritan did is he carried the weight. He made an investment. He didn't create it. It wasn't his fault this guy got robbed. He didn't have any responsibility in it all. He just happened to come across the situation as it existed, and so he did what he could do. He helped the man, and he took the man to the end, and he shared the burden with the end, because as he left, somebody had to still tend to the guy, right? And so there was a little community effort. I think this is very small. I think it's a little more dramatic to you and I because we don't come across these kind of events very often. But we do come across events where people are emotionally exhausted, beat up, and left for half dead. We come across people who are so lonely, they just want somebody to talk to about anything. They're emotionally half dead in that regard. So our community, we come together and we share those responsibilities together, and we build something together by mutually putting it in. And no one does it all. This is the problem with the pastor model in churches. The pastor, he's the head of the church, and he's supposed to do everything. And then the whoever else participates in the program, and every churches do it all different. But what it basically turns down to is the people in the pews are there to be entertained, and they're the ones that are to be catered to. And if the entertainment and the message doesn't come up to the catering, well, I'll just go try a different church. I didn't get nothing out of that. Well, my question is, what did you put into that to start with? What did you invest in that community? Why did you expect to set back while somebody else did it all? Nobody can do it all. And the ones that are complaining would complain 10 times louder if they were the one expected to do it all. They're expecting just to sit back and be serviced. That's indifference. That's the priest and the Levite. Isn't that kind of scary? You go, well, I'd never be the priest. I'd never walk by and leave somebody just laying on the road half dead. I'd never do what that Levite did. That's a horrible thing. No, you wouldn't. But you'd leave other things on the side of the road and say, I'm too busy. Don't have time for that. Gotta get home, sit in my recliner. Don't have time for that. I got to go play. I can't build community at work because I'm too busy doing X, Y. We all got our excuses. We're all busy. We all have a full plate. And I think in our modern time, we all have a full plate. And so we have to prioritize, and we have to decide, what do we really want to build? Where do we really want to put our time? So the problems remained after the Good Samaritan did what he did. The highway was still a dangerous place. The thieves were still out there free somewhere. He didn't solve all of the problems. That's another thing we get into. We try to make perfection the enemy of success. Unless it's 100% perfect and it solves everything, man, I'm not going to do that yet. The Samaritan just got in and did what he did, even though limits were there on what he could do. He made it a little bit better. I have to think of the starfish story. And I like that one. I've told it before, but it's been a couple of years or longer. Young boy walking down the beach after a storm, and all these starfish had been washed up on the beach, and there were just tens of thousands of them lying down as far as the eye could see. And the boy picks one up, throws it in the water, and he picks one up, throws it back in the water, and a stranger comes along, and he says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm saving the starfish." And the stranger says, "You'll never make a difference." And the boy bends down, and he picks up one, throws it back in the water, and says, "Made a difference to that one." That's what builds community. when we start making a difference by contributing in ways that look insignificant to the bigger world. So who proved to be the neighbor? Anybody can talk the game. Everybody talks a good game. We know how to do that. Community. Do you want it in theory or do you want it in investment? Do you want it in practice? Do you really want that great marriage? Or you just like the idea of a great marriage? Would you like to improve the workplace, or do you just like the idea of a great workplace? You know, because some workplaces are great. Some workplaces, the people come together and they just jive, and I don't know how it all works, but it's great. And there's some places it's like going to work in a morgue every day. You just, what do you want? Mercy, investment. It's practiced, and just in the little things. So the Samaritan didn't have a great big plan. He didn't have a big political movement. He didn't have a government behind him or anything, great leadership. He just came across a need. He saw the need. He says, I think I can help here. And he offered his help. And then he went about his business. That's it. He just did the good that was in front of him. And that's what we're encouraging. So we're far more capable of than what we realize. We think, oh, I can never make a difference in the world. And you're right. I don't think you or I are likely to ever make a big, phenomenal difference in just the whole state of Arkansas, you know, where the governor calls us up and she says, hey, I've heard the story about what you did and I just want you to come to the Capitol and we're going to have a special ceremony today and we're going to honor you for the contribution you've made in Jefferson County. We just can't believe there are people like you that exist. Now, what are the odds of that happening? But you know what? I can make that difference in my immediate circle. I'm talking, when I say immediate circle, I'm talking the inner family. I can make a big difference right there. And I can stretch out a little bit and I can make a little bit more difference. Now, I understand the further I stretch out, the less impact I have. But that's not the point. I'm still contributing to community. And we're capable right here in our own little small community of making more difference than we realize. So we accept our responsibility and things change for the better. So we're at an 80% good rating. I'm just making up a number. And I change it to an 81. Now I've got two choices. I can go, look, see, I told you I made it better. Or I can go, it didn't make that much difference. I think I'll just go back to 80%. And then we're going to drift down to 79, 78, 77. Because once you get a drift going, that's the way it goes. So our community is consistency. It's not going to end with just a single moment, but it's going to require follow through. I know I say it jokingly, and I do mean it, though. I want that big plate, the plate with the big ugly Go 50 on it that says 50 years, you know. And then I hope that we get the one that says 60. And do you know we have people in this congregation that are past 70 years in their marriage? I asked Alan. I said, how long have your folks been married? He said, well, it's got to be over 70 years because I'm 70 years old. I'm like, wow, there's a new goal. Now I'm going to have 3 plates on my wall, 50, 60, and 70. Look, I get to 60. I want the one that says 61, 62, 63. I want it, but it's going to require continuous follow through. I can never take the community of just me and Sharon and go, well, I told you way back there in 1978 when we walked down the aisle, I told you I loved you. And if it ever changes, I'll tell you. No. Ladies, doesn't that just warm your heart? Isn't that the kind of man you want? The community of just marriage takes daily, weekly, monthly, and we're going to live life by decades, not by just one brief moment and rest on our laurels. So many people are doing the small, faithful things. It's really easy to do. We're not asking for anything great, big, and profound. It doesn't require perfection, just willingness. So as Mark made mention in the announcements, you know, the cutting the grass, and we have plenty of people to cut the grass, and that keeps the grass cut. What if we didn't have anybody cut the grass? You'd lose sight of the building behind the weeds before much longer, wouldn't you? You know, there's just those little things that, you know, you don't have to do it perfect. Everybody just pitches in and does what they does, because no one's responsible for everything. But we are responsible for something. We all have our responsibility. So it's not about big miracles. Don't be thinking of it that way. It's just about presence, just about being pleasant, just about being enjoyable to be around and having a group that can get together and have a good time, because that's a lot of what community is. So it's just a bunch of small steps. So Jesus said, and go and do the same. So Jesus calls us to look inward and go, what about me? What am I doing? What am I investing into the community? Kind of an interesting thought, isn't it? I don't want to rehash that too much. We've got too much consumer mentality. So he moves us from just having ideas, good intentions, to literal action, to actually stepping up and getting involved with one another. And that's when community grows. That's it. Now we can all become a bunch of monks and decide we're going to take a vow of silence and we're never going to do this and we're never going to do that. And we're not going to go outside our doors and what have you. And there's not going to be much sense of community. Or we can get involved with one another. And that all begins at home. And then it starts expanding. Just respond to the needs around you. What are they? How can I contribute to this? What could I do? What could I say to make it better? Again, let me say, sometimes you just need to walk up to somebody and go, look, I know you're struggling. I know it's a hard time. I just want you to know I'm aware of it and I'm thinking about you. That's it. It's not profound. It's not earth shaking. It's certainly not going to make the headlines. But how many times have you been going through a hard time, a really rough time, and you know how it gets. You just get in that place where I don't even know if I'm going to get through this. And somebody comes up beside you and says something along the lines, I know you're going through a hard time. Just want you to know I'm thinking about you. And it gives you that extra bump to get on through that hard time. That's community. That's what community does. So collectively, we have 1,000 small, little bitty decisions, and none of them profound and exciting on their own. But when they all come together, my, don't they make a world of difference? So let's close. Jesus is simply teaching the practice is tough, but you got to do it. We got to step outside our comfort zone. Community has grown slowly and patiently. Usually some little insignificant things that you miss the idea that you're actually building community. He's not asking for one single person to change the world. He's just asking all of us to make a contribution. Phone call that checks on somebody, a listening ear, a little patience instead of frustration. Sometimes that's what it takes. Love is proven when we take action. That's what it boils down to. Knowledge alone isn't going to build community. Well, if knowledge alone built community, we'd have the greatest global community that you could possibly imagine, because our level of knowledge right now is outstanding. Generations just 20 years ago couldn't imagine what we know now. Not working, is it? Not knowledge. It's that action. That's it. It's kindness, repeated quietly over and over, creates community that blesses a lot of folks. Not being too busy, not being indifferent, just taking a moment to do the little kind things. Now, let's make application, then I'll quit. When was the last time you said, I really need to give so-and-so a phone call? But for some reason you didn't do it. Maybe your favorite show was coming on. Maybe you're getting ready to run out to Chick-fil-A. Maybe you were, you had a dozen things come up. And then you remember 3 days later, oh man, I meant to call so-and-so. I'm going to do that this evening. And then this evening rolls around, and what happens? When was the last time you said, I really need to send a text, drop by and visit, and life got in the way? That's where we make our choice. And we have to prioritize what we're going to invest in to build community, or if we're going to be the priest that walks past it and the Levite that walks past it, rather than the Samaritan who stopped and dealt with it. That's the difference in a good community and a not so good community. Obviously, it begins with walking in Christ. If you're not walking in Christ, you need to make that start. If we can help you, let us do so while we stand and sing.